All right, thank you very much for your patience, listeners. We appreciate that. It's now 7:07 in the AM, and let's see, do I have my guest? Mr. Chung?
Yes, hi, Richard.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Dennis. I'm sorry about that. I actually thought I had lost you. But thank you so much for joining me once again, looking at this new development. An announcement was made in Parliament as recent as yesterday by the now departed Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clark, where he announced the formation of the Fiscal Advisory Committee, the FAC. And many people are already wondering how different might this committee be in terms of functions and so on from, say, the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC. And so we wanted to look at that this morning. Thanks again for joining us. Welcome to the big story. Is there a major stark difference between the two entities from where you sit, Dennis Chung, as a financial analyst?
No, my understanding is that it effectively is going to carry out the same function and replace what the EPOC does. If you realize it's the same persons essentially who are on the committee. So I expect that it will carry out essentially the same function, no difference really, just to ensure that there is oversight of the fiscal program so that we don't go off track, because you know what happened before. When we had gone off track and, it had run up a debt to GDP of 150%. So I think Keith is basically just going to carry on the function that he had before.
So essentially what you're saying is that this is a replacement of EPOC, the FAC is a...
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, that's what I understand. As it essentially is a replacement of EPOC.
What would you say then are the primary objectives of the Fiscal Advisory Committee, for the benefit of my listeners?
Well, the primary objective of the Fiscal Advisory Committee is really just to ensure that we stick to the fiscal discipline that has been developed, and we don't break the fiscal rules, because you'll know that after the 2013 IMF agreement, a few years after, we had put in some fiscal rules that Parliament has to follow. And that's to ensure that our debt, the GDP, never goes back to where it was. Because prior to 2013, when we had the IMF agreement, it was just a difficult time. We were basically paying out, I think, about 70 or 80% of our budget in debt charges, and we don't want to get back to that situation. Right now, the debt to GDP is around 70%, and you can see that we're making a lot more investments in the infrastructure, a lot more road work is happening, a lot more housing construction is happening. And that can only improve as long as we continue to reduce the debt and manage our fiscal properly, then that will improve. So it's like, Richie, that you have your household income. If you have an income of $100 and your debt charge is on it is $80 or $90, because you're basically borrowing from the future to consume now, which is like borrowing to buy a car. Then having $20 left out of $100, you can't do much for yourself.
Right.
Because you have bills to pay and all of that. So what we effectively did is carry that down by reducing the debt to GDP level. So we're now, in simple terms, say we're earning $100 now, and we're just paying out debt of $40. It means that we have $60 to spend on ourselves now, so we have more discretionary income. That now what we've used to do is, as I said, you see the road works happening, and I mean, when you look at what happened with Beryl passing, we recovered very quickly. A lot of expenditure was done, and we didn't have to borrow any money, right, which we would have had to do in the past. The roads are destroyed, and you see a lot of patching happening now that wouldn't happen as quickly. And we see a lot of road work happening, a lot of housing construction happening also. So we have more money to spend on ourselves, and primarily what the fiscal committee is supposed to do is to ensure that we continue on that path and actually strengthen it by providing oversight.
Mm-hmm. So the continued leadership of Keith Duncan will be in place for the Fiscal Advisory Committee. The construct, the other members include trade unionist Helene Davis White. There is from civil society Nancy Pinchas. We also have Dr. Patrice Whiteley from academia, and a representative coming from Grace Kennedy, one of the executives there from the private sector, Karine Tomlinson. What's your view on the construct of the membership?
Well, it's a good construct. I know quite a few of them that are there. Maybe the only one I don't know very well is Patrice Whiteley, but I know Nancy actually rides bicycle with Nancy. And Kareem, I actually know Kareem from Grace Kennedy. He is the head of GK Capital, which I'm chairman of. I know Keith, of course, and also Melanie Davis White.
Yes.
And I think they're good people. I think they'll be solid for the committee. So I think that will be in good hands with them overseeing it and ensuring that the fiscal rules are kept intact.
Do you foresee any potential challenges that the FAC may face in advising on Jamaica's fiscal rules?
Well, the challenge is that Parliament does not want to adhere to the fiscal rules. I don't think that Keith and his team will be afraid to report if they're violating it. And I think that is the most important thing. Certainly that committee has the capacity to analyze and understand if it is being maintained. If you look at the mix of the committee also, Helene comes from a trade union point of view, which is a worker representation. So we see that the mix of the committee actually provides for comments from various stakeholder groups in there, which is good. So it's not that they will be just providing their own opinions, but rather the groups that they actually consult with. So I think that the greatest challenge, as I say, is that parliamentarians don't want to adhere to it. But I don't think it's going to be a challenge, because I think that, the government is there in opposition and they'll be watching each other. So I don't think they'll allow for any one of them to actually do anything to try and disrupt the fiscal rules. So I think we're pretty safe. I think that where we are in our economic program, I think that we are in a good space. So I think we have laid the foundation, and I think it is in our DNA now. It's in our culture that we are fiscally prudent, right? So I think that each year that goes by, we get better and better at it, and the fiscal rules and the fiscal committee will ensure that culture is ingrained. And I think that's the most important thing for us, that culture gets stronger and stronger, so that we don't get back to that situation. Because you remember, Richie B, that first time when budget used to read and everybody used to fret.
Yes.
I wonder if they're going to tax me now.
Yes. I know. We went through that phase. Now, how will we be? How will we know, Dennis? Of the success of the FAC. What metrics will be used to measure their success?
Well, the success of the FAC is going to basically be in their reporting. So if you look at EPOC, for example, the reporting that EPOC did to make sure that everything was kept in line. So their reports will actually tell us how successful they are. Now, the committee doesn't have the power to direct someone to do something and they have to follow. But just providing that oversight and in that reporting that they do, maybe every quarter or so they'll do it, then that will be the success of the committee to say, okay, this is what is happening, and provide some clarity in the report for the public to understand, and always maintain that relevance for the committee. that really is what success is going to be.
All right. Thank you for that, for those thoughts. Today we are without a finance minister, Dennis. Is it expected that we'll get an announcement today, you believe?
Well, there's a post-cabinet briefing at, I think, 8:30 or 9 o'clock. I think that it will happen there.
Okay.
I think it's an opportune time for it to happen. As I said to someone yesterday, I don't think that it is something that we had to rush before. I think that the timing has been laid out and I think certainly the post-cab press conference today will provide that. What is important, though, is that certainly before next week we need to know, because of the perception it creates out there. And the finance minister, by legislation and by some procedures, will have some duties to perform. So we'd love to know maybe today, latest tomorrow. But I think the post-cap today is actually the opportune time for it to be announced.
Okay. We'll watch and we'll see. Thank you very much, Dennis. Have a good day as always. Take care.
Yeah, man.
Great having you.
No problem.
All right. That was Mr. Dennis Chung, ladies and gentlemen, a financial analyst, well-known and very, very knowledgeable financial analyst who definitely always answered to our call. And he broke it down for us so that we could all understand the role and functions of the Fiscal Advisory Committee, which has now been formed and pretty much is a replacement of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, and will have similar functions, but I guess a broader spectrum of duties and responsibilities. Big ups to the members of the FAC, and we'll be waiting with bated breath to hear these reports that you will come out with from time to time. That was the big story. Our time is now 19 minutes after 7 o'clock. And like I said, I'm making a few calls, but I haven't gotten any information that I can share as yet as to who might be appointed the new Minister of Finance. I don't know. We'll wait and see. In relation to my interview a while ago, Mr. Rose sent me a WhatsApp message. He says the FAC is now appointed by the Governor General. EPOC was not. This means that the FAC is just like the Auditor General.